Let's talk about a practical way that you can read people's thoughts. Now, when I say read people's thoughts, I'm not talking about it in the manner of like Jean Grey, where the exact thought that they have in this moment is something that you pick up on, or you hear it like their voice speaking to themselves. You hear that voice in your head. And, for some people who are in a particular frequency, that may be how it appears to them. But understand that telepathy is a gift that we all have. And it may not be Jean Grey telepathy, but it doesn't make it any less real. Now, understand when you walk into a certain room and you can feel the end, like you walk into a room and there's like a group of people sitting at a table, or people have been conversing or whatever. Maybe they're respecting you, maybe they weren't. You can feel the energy of a room. You can feel the energy when people look at you. When you walk by certain people, you can feel the energy, or you can feel, you can tell where certain thoughts originate based off of. You can tell where certain looks or certain actions originate, because if you understand that we only act based off of our beliefs, which are rooted in our thoughts. So this world essentially is a reflection of all of the thoughts that have been thought. You are a summation of all of the thoughts that you have thought, which can seem depressing, but I would like to add something to that. You are the summation of all of the thoughts that you have thought, and all of the thoughts about you that you have entered or that you have accepted. Now, I understand that law of one exists, and this external world is a reflection of your internal state of being. But if you understand that the same power that exists within you exists within everyone, then you can understand how people, when they combine their thought energy, if whether or not you're combining it towards a positive cause, or you're combining it towards or adding vitriol towards somebody else, there is an effect. For every cause, there is an effect. And just as in certain religious texts, it says that the word of God will not return void. If you understand your thoughts and your emotions to be the word of God, then you can see how thought forms affect us all. The things that we think about each other impact us, influence events in certain ways. Now, in this video, I do want to draw a quick distinction here, because I am someone who's dealt with very serious witchcraft. And if you're somebody who's never actually had that surface in your life, for one, thank God that that's not the assignment you chose. But don't discount it just because you didn't experience it. Because I promise you it's real. In fact, when a group of people send out or commune to bash someone, or to send out negative thought forms towards someone, and that person accepts those thought forms because of the beliefs that they have about themselves, right? That influences the state that the person is in, pushing them further into a state of depression, which obviously, if their internal state of being is reflected outside of them, it has an impact on their life. It creates their reality. So in a very real way, what is more witchcraft than that? Would that not be considered putting a spell on someone? When we talk about these things, and I mean, this is not a novel idea that I'm presenting. This is essentially what we're dealing with. This is the reality that we need to face. The fact that we all have the power to both bless and curse each other. And the fact that we've always had this power. The fact that things are playing out now the way that they are because of this power being misused. I just want to shed some light on it to, one, give you the ability to see, to look at reality and see the thoughts behind it. But also to hopefully ignite in you a desire to want to share the message, because that's how we really create change, by talking about these types of things enough so that it becomes something that's just known. And then at that point, the collective has accepted something into our consciousness, and we're radiating at such a level that we can begin to see higher levels of what would be considered magic, higher levels of what would be considered thought manipulation. Not people manipulation, but thought manipulation. How we can arrange our thoughts collectively to create certain desired outcomes, and how we can accurately use thought. So, witchcraft is one element. This isn't necessarily that, because for one, and I mentioned it when I'm talking about the fact that we have the ability to bless and to curse. Just as easily as a group of people can come together to radiate negative energy towards a person, that same group can come together to heal groups of people. And if you don't believe me, I promise you, there have already been large group meditations that have resulted in some of the most miraculous healings, things that you could not believe. People literally getting up out of wheelchairs and walking around. They talk about it sometimes too at some of these mega churches. I'm not talking about the bullcrap ones where they plant people in certain places, but even for people who are peddling the message that source lives outside of them, the energy that the group can radiate at can be so strong that even for a brief moment, these are not the group meditations that I was talking about before. This is just in like normal mega church situations. Their combined energy can radiate at such a level where in those situations people can get up out of wheelchairs. Unfortunately, a lot of times in those cases, because I believe, anyways, this is me injecting my opinion into it, I believe because they have the fundamental belief that source exists outside of them, that God exists outside of them somewhere in the clouds, that they take so much energy out of themselves that in any miraculous healing that their vibration does create, they can't maintain. They eventually fall back out of it. Now, there have been other group meditations where people are aware of who they are and are intentionally meditating to change a certain cause. Like, I believe Billy Carson talked about a group meditation that he was a part of where it was directed towards lowering police brutality in a particular city, and they measured it and they were able to see a decline. Like, all they did was meditate, and just like that was it. Like, it wasn't like a whole ass like movement. Like, no, it wasn't that. It was literally just in meditation. So, and Joe Dispenza talks about how group minds can work in helping people to create certain brainwave states. And at certain brainwave states, there's just certain things that happen in this world. Like the universe responds to you differently when you occupy a certain state. That's the other side of that. So we have witchcraft, and then we have these other scenarios where we can essentially heal each other by pooling our collective thought energy. This is somewhere in the middle, because this isn't necessarily one of those extremes. This is more you going and taking a look at your life and honing your own personal ability to discern situations. So with this, have you ever done something and then wondered to yourself, why did I do that? And I'm not taking blame away from you doing anything stupid, because obviously we're all responsible for our own actions. But what I'm talking about is, have you ever just in a moment done something so out of character for you that it felt like you were under the influence of something else? Have you ever? And it may only lasted a moment, just enough for you to get that action complete, and then you're back to you. And then you're like, why the hell did I do that? Like, what? Or have you ever seen an outcome of any particular event? Insert whatever, game, fight, promotion, demotion, marriage, graduation, assignment due, insert whatever. At the conclusion of that, after having a tumultuous run with the team, or successful run with the team, whatever, you see just like the looks on everyone's faces, and suddenly a situation that you encountered during becomes clearer to you. And I know that I hope that you were able to follow that. Have you ever seen at the conclusion of a particular event where an outcome has now been had that was outside of any one individual's control, and based on the reactions of everyone who had involvement in said outcome, you're able to see resolutions to events, or you're able to see the why behind events that transpired before, just by seeing the reactions. In those moments, you've read someone's mind. You saw what someone was thinking. Now, you may have seen what someone was thinking in the past, but you still have saw what someone was thinking. In the situation where you did something that was completely out of character for you, this is the interesting one. Especially when I know I talked about witchcraft before. But I want to be clear that in those situations doesn't necessarily mean that you were under the influence of witchcraft. Just because you did something stupid doesn't mean it was witches. Trust me, I've done a lot of stupid things on my own, and dealing with warding off witchcraft. But you have to understand that the law is absolute. The law is absolute. So you think it, you resonate at a certain level, and the atoms have to play themselves out, right? That's what it is. Understand that if you have gotten a feeling that, oh, this person or these groups of people were talking about you, good or bad, then certain things play themselves out. Well, now you know what they were talking about because you see how the atoms arrange themselves. And you fill in the blanks wherever you need to fill in the blanks for your personal story, your personal situation. You look at how the atoms arrange themselves, and you see that what you're looking at is an amalgamation of the thoughts that went into it. And by looking at the reactions, you can see who certain actors were, who certain thinkers were. And based on the intensity of the level of emotion that's written on their face, you can determine whether or not they were thinkers for you or thinkers against you. And it's in that manner that you can begin to learn to use your discernment to read people's thoughts, to the point where you don't need to wait for an outcome to read thoughts by reactions. You can perceive potential outcomes and look at others and see where they're vibrating and whether or not they're thinking for or against you, just by simply entering an aura, entering their aura. Now, in a video like this where I've talked about a lot, and I may have incited, even in slightly, a bit of fear in you about the potential of power of others' thoughts, especially others' groups, especially if you're somebody who's dealing or has dealt with groups of people who take set against you. You know how powerful and how demoralizing it can be. But you also know, you understand that, right? And understand, I want to be clear, the power in witchcraft comes in your belief, because essentially it's your belief that causes whatever action to take place. It's your belief that pulls it in. No witch, warlock, whatever, sorcerer has any power over you except that you give them. So with that, I want to be clear that yes, these things exist. We're not going to be ignorant and say that these things don't exist, because they do. They exist to the point where there's people who actually practice and have destructive spells written down, that, like, to the point that is real. So we're not going to claim that this doesn't exist, but what we will claim is that the truth of the matter is still that there is no power outside of you that is greater than the God within you. And I should not have to say, especially in a video like this, that I'm calling you, personality, whoever you are, whatever your name is, that I'm calling you my God or the God of all. No. But I'm saying that the source of all is experiencing all through you, as you. And that presence that exists inside of you is more powerful than any thought form outside of you, no matter where it's coming from or how collective it is. And it's as simple as this to stay protected. Now, if you are actively dealing with a situation where you are being attacked by a group of witches, warlocks, or whatever, then I would highly suggest a loving protection spell. You fight hate with the balance of the opposite, and that opposite being love. So you do a protection spell where maybe they're part of an entity, you bind the entity to it. You send love to it, and you understand that your soul and you have the ability to do this. And if you need assistance getting the proper items for a protection spell, drop in your information in the comments, and I promise you I'll get you the information that you need. Maybe I'll do a whole video on it. But It's as simple as this. If you're not in that situation, I just had to go ahead and get that out there because there's different levels to this shit, and there's people dealing with different stuff. And I want to be able to help out as many people as I can who really want to talk about the mental warfare and the spiritual warfare that goes on. So, if you're not in that situation, it's as simple as you imagining a bubble around yourself in the morning or throughout the day, whenever you start feeling like something is off, or even before then. You can make it a regular practice. You can add some type of an affirmation to it. This is my sphere, no harm can enter here. Rhymes tend to stick. It's as simple as you creating a barrier for yourself and setting your intent that your love gets out, no harm comes in. Only loving thought forms can enter your inner space. Only thought forms of your highest good. Only thought forms of peace, prosperity. You set that as your intent. And you use whatever symbol works for you. It can be a bubble that has whatever shade of color you need, and you can look up what different colors mean based on what your situation is, and imagine that around yourself, so that this bubble, this hedge of protection that you've placed around yourself is endued with whatever it is that you need it to be endued with. And then you can take it a step further, and you can picture that energy that you just created going away from you and going to certain family members. You can picture it enveloping them. And if you feel some type of resistance from it, you don't gotta press. Move on to the next person. You can send it to friends. You can picture a map of the world, and you can picture your bubble going around a certain country or a certain town. Shit, you can picture it going around the globe, and picture it in that way as a symbol meaning the globe if you can't picture the actual entire world. And as simple as that, you're making an impact. You're sending out loving vibration of which you are the source of. And I promise you, that has an impact. It does. It absolutely does. Absolutely. So, I hope that something in this video was helpful to you. We talked about how to read the thoughts of others through situations, talked a bit about witchcraft, talked a bit about blessings, about spontaneous healings through group services as well as group meditations, and then talked about how you can protect yourself, both if you're dealing with a situation of which is actually like trying stuff with you, or if you just want to be able to protect yourself on a daily, to only allow into your aura that which serves your highest good. So I really, really hope that you got something out of this. This video was not intended to scare anybody or not intended to cause anybody to think that there is some force outside of them that's greater than the God within them, because you're amazing. You are. The God in you is amazing. Created you, each of us, like little snowflakes, all freaking different, all with our own unique gift, our own message to give. And whatever yours is, I'm sure it's beautiful. Either way, I love you. I want to see the fullest expression of you. This is The Spark.